This is CBC Vancouver News.
In cooperation with John Rustad, we will work together to assemble the best possible team.
A shocking shakeup in BC politics. BC United hits pause on its election campaign and asks supporters to back the BC Conservatives less than 2 months before the provincial election.
When I traveled around the province, people are saying enough is enough. They want change.
Plus, a BC court rules against the city of Vancouver in a crackdown on a mushroom dispensary. And a close encounter captured on camera. A group of BC boaters get a front row visit with orcas. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Janella Hamilton. There's been a major shakeup in BC's political landscape. The official opposition, BC United, is suspending its campaign and asking supporters to back the BC Conservatives. And United leader Kevin Falcon is stepping down. As Liam Britton reports, it represents a stunning fall for a once dominant party and the growing strength of another.
Just 16 months ago, Kevin Falcon and the BC Liberals changed their party name to BC United, hoping a rebrand would help them win October's provincial election.
Changing the party name is something that we need to look at, and we need to make a decision as a party.
But with less than 2 months before Election Day, that effort is now over.
There is nothing more important to me, and my children and your children and grandchildren, that we not give the NDP one more day in power than they absolutely have to have.
Amid low polling and fundraising challenges, BC United is suspending its campaign and asking supporters to back the BC Conservative Party and leader John Rustad. United is withdrawing its candidates' nominations, and Kevin Falcon is no longer running. The move comes after earlier attempts at some kind of merger fell flat.
This is hard. It's really hard.
Falcon says party supporters and donors sent him a clear message.
We were struggling on the financial fundraising side. Yes, I do acknowledge that. What they're saying to me is, we're not going to support any of you guys until you figure out how to make sure you don't split the vote.
Conservative leader John Rustad says the parties will work together to field the best slate of candidates to deny the NDP another term.
When 1 in 3 British Columbians are thinking about leaving this province, when 1 in 2 youth are thinking about leaving this province, that says something very strongly about the despair that this province has realizing under an NDP government.
Now, this could be seen as the culmination of the resurgence of the Conservative Party. In the last election, they were basically a fringe party, getting less than 2% of the vote. But this time, they are at least set to be the unquestioned standard bearers on the right of the political spectrum. An August 20th Main Street poll pegs support for the Conservatives at 36%. Well ahead of United at 10% and 3 points above the NDP. However, poll aggregator 338 Canada projected, as of August 14th, the NDP had a 79% chance of winning the most seats. And still, given the withdrawal of BC United, those results may no longer be accurate. The Premier argues the choice between BC United and the Conservatives wasn't a stark one anyway.
We know what John Rustad has planned: deep cuts to the healthcare system. They're going to make waits longer and healthcare worse. And he's done it before. He's going to do it again.
What exactly happens next is still unclear. Falcon didn't say BC United is dissolving. Both he and Rustad say talks around policy are still to come, as well as which BC United candidates, if any, will run under the Conservative banner. Both parties have dozens already nominated.
We're going to be going through a process between the two parties to make decisions as to who would be the best to be able to field to bring an end to David Eby and the destruction he's bringing to British Columbia.
Falcon and Rustad say the most important reason to put their differences aside is to try and slam the door on David Eby and his New Democrats. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
The CBC's Dan Burrett spoke with a UBC political scientist this afternoon about what he thinks of this move.
It was a tough choice, obviously, for Falcon. Tough personally, probably. He's giving up his own ambitions. Tough interpersonally for the candidates and fellow members of caucus that he's had to let down. He's going to step away, probably. I don't think there's a lot of opportunity for him to shape what this Conservative Party looks like, even though he's kind of helping them along. What the character of the Conservative Party is going to be isn't necessarily changed overnight. Some of the contest here is now changed. It's a bimodal contest really now between the NDP and the BC Conservatives. But the BC Conservatives are not suddenly more moderate because of this change. Their positions are what they had. You saw Mr. Rustad had an opportunity to address climate change issues. He did not. He kind of evaded the question. Talked about the positions of the party are essentially the same. So as voters get to know those, there's certainly lots of folks who are going to support that. But I think the alternatives will become much clearer now for voters in British Columbia as we progress and march toward that October election date.
Kevin Falcon asked about the fact that some staffers within BC United did not know about this decision. Him saying, I apologize, I couldn't bring them into the fold, and because he said we were not certain we would get to a good conclusion on this. What does that say about the state of the party, do you think?
I think there were negotiating needs that he had in mind, not making sure to kind of, hold his cards close to his chest. There's going to be a lot of people burned, both candidates and staff. They're going to feel burned about their experience in politics, about their loyalty to whatever alternative now exists, who they're going to work for in the future. I think there'll be unhappy people in the Conservative Party too, as the sort of candidate sorting process takes place and they figure out who's going where. So I think in a lot of ways, this is not easy for a lot of people. It was never going to be easy once the election was over. There were going to be people who no longer were in staff positions, no longer, in the legislature. But for sure, today's a bad day for a lot of folks because of the decisions of, the elites and the top people in their political parties.
Gerald Byer, UBC political scientist, we always appreciate your insight. Thank you very much for joining us, and rest assured we will be coming back to you as we head toward October 19th. Thanks again, Jerry.
My pleasure, Dan.
In other news, Handy Dart workers in BC have rejected a final contract offer from their employer, Transdev. Amalgamated Transit Union Local 1724, which represents 600 workers, says a 72-hour strike notice is being considered, though it has not yet been issued.
Service will be cut down to about 18% of our normal runs. And I think about 5,000 people use it a day. It's gonna be really hard. I mean, people need to go to their visit friends and family, go grocery shopping, go to day programs, go to school, go to work. Everything will be affected. It's not a good situation.
He says key issues include wage fairness and concerns over a high level of employee turnover. Negotiations have been ongoing since last November. A BC court has ruled against the city of Vancouver in a case involving a mushroom dispensary. As Yasmin Khanea reports, the court found the city failed to prove a business was selling illegal substances.
This is the medicinal mushroom dispensary on East Hastings Street. According to a recent court judgment, in 2022, an inspector with the city of Vancouver believed the business was operating an illegal mushroom dispensary where substances containing psilocybin, the psychoactive compound found in magic mushrooms, were sold. Court documents say the inspector saw signs that read mushroom dispensary, psychedelics, and no minors. The inspector ordered the business to cease operating as a mushroom dispensary and to remove all materials related to the dispensary within 14 days. But he said changes weren't made. The director of the corporation that runs the business has been found guilty of violating the order and has a sentencing hearing in the fall. But the court says the city failed to establish that the business was actually selling psilocybin products, noting that there's no evidence that the inspector spoke to customers or employees about whether illegal substances were being sold or that the inspector seized or tested any of the products. It is possible that the mushrooms being sold included illicit substances. It is even likely. However, a possibility or a probability does not meet the standard of proof, the court decision reads. The medicinal mushroom dispensary is welcoming the decision, calling it a victory. But the city says the business is currently unlicensed and not allowed to operate. It says it'll wait until after sentencing to decide whether to appeal. Yasmin Ranea, CBC News, Vancouver.
BC's Auditor General says it found no evidence of a conflict of interest in the handling of provincial clean energy grants by the company MNP, allegations that were made by a truck maker in Merritt. As Mira Baines reports, that company says it's disappointed with the findings.
BC's Auditor General says there was no conflict of interest after a meticulous investigation into the allegations involving a clean energy program called Advanced Research and Commercialization, or ARC, grant program.
That's 5,200 emails, and found no evidence that MNP's grant administration staff attempted to solicit business for the firm.
Edison Motors, a BC-based electric hybrid truck maker, accused MNP, the company involved in the program, of both administering the grants and offering services to help businesses with applications. This TikTok featuring the allegations went viral.
We were in the news today as part of a corruption scandal.
Opposition parties pushed the province for answers and called for an investigation. Pickup was clear in his findings that it's the ministry who approves which companies would receive grants. However, he did say there may have been an information gap which contributed to how applicants felt about the program.
The ARC and Civic applicants did not likely have all relevant facts and information, so you can see how the situation may have occurred.
Still, the owner and founder of Edison Motors is disappointed with the report's findings.
They seem to miss the whole thing I was trying to say in the report, was that the conflict of interest. We felt pressured into signing up with a company because of how much influence they had in the entire program.
The report says MNP did offer grant writing services to 3 applicants of the ARC program. BC's Premier noted there was no misconduct found, but says government can improve its role.
I think the advice to government that some of the communications could and should have been clear is a good reminder to us.
MNP could not be reached for comment. The clean energy program at the center of allegations will now resume, according to the ministry. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
BC's housing minister is addressing safety concerns at a supportive housing building in Kelowna. A group of neighbors have produced a video, and as Brady Strachan explains, it shows people yelling, fighting, and taking part in alleged drug dealing outside the building.
The video shows a series of altercations and disturbances, many of them happening late at night outside the Stephen Village supportive housing building.
Right there, there was stopped.
Tyler Zeman and his neighbors have been compiling the videos over the past few years. Evidence, they say, of how their once peaceful neighborhood has changed with the opening of the supportive housing building 4 years ago.
We hear fights all hours of the day, screaming all hours of the night. I get woken up probably 3-4 times a week by their residents out there yelling, screaming, fighting.
He says neighbors feel like calls to police, the city, and the operator of the housing building have fallen on deaf ears.
Residents in the neighborhood are just fed up and wanted to see a change.
In an online petition, Zeman and his neighbors are calling for the province to change the operating model to that of a drug-free facility focused more on recovery. Stephen Village is run by the John Howard Society of Okanagan and Kootenay. In a written statement, the society says it's working to reduce disturbances, but cites factors out of its control, like the presence of people on the street who are not residents of Stephen Village.
Morning, everyone.
BC Housing Minister Ravi Kahlon was asked to weigh in this week on the situation when he was in Kelowna to announce funding for another supportive housing project.
When issues do arise, we do try to engage with the not-for-profit provider to find out if there's additional measures that we can put in place to create greater safety for the community. In this case, BC Housing is doing that engagement.
Kelowna's Mayor Tom Dias says he too is looking for a solution.
We're potentially seeing whether there's an opportunity to establish some form of cameras at that location to allow for greater efficiency with respect to response from RCMP and bylaw.
As for Tyler Zeman, he says those promises hold little weight as long as people continue to cause chaos on the streets.
They're not going anywhere. We know that. We all need to live together and make this a better neighborhood.
Brady Strachan, CBC News, Kelowna.
To BC's wildfire situation now, officials say there are no people or properties currently under evacuation orders or alerts. While there are 262 active wildfires, none are considered of note.
These are encouraging numbers. Recent cool, wet weather is giving BC Wildfire Service an opportunity to make significant gains on wildfires, especially in the south. Another sign that we are approaching fall weather is that campfire bans throughout much of the province have been rescinded.
The wet weather is also helping ease the need for water restrictions in places used to them, like the Sunshine Coast. The region's infrastructure services manager says this is the first summer since 2014 that they've gone without strict water restrictions.
And since every year we have 4 stages of water restrictions. And since 2014, every year we had to go to stage 3 or stage 4. And this time around, I'm really pleased that we only have to go to stage 2, and we're still in stage 2.
Right. And what does stage 2 mean?
Stage 2 currently means that there's no watering of lawns allowed, but most other uses are still allowed. So vegetable gardens are not impacted. People can still water their shrubs and their borders. So it's really making a difference for the community as well as for us.
He says community response and a new water source also helped the district steer clear of severe water restrictions this summer. BC's ombudsperson is calling for provincial laws to provide oversight for municipal councils. More on that after the break. BC's ombudsperson is calling for province-wide legislation that would ensure and enforce ethics and integrity oversight for municipal councils. Chad Pawson explains.
BC's ombudsperson is the latest to call for changes over how complaints involving the behavior of municipal councillors and mayors is investigated. Currently, that's regulated through code of conduct bylaws or integrity commissioners put in place by city councillors. Jay Chalk says this setup is problematic. That's because city councils can amend their bylaws whenever they wish, meaning the oversight in place to investigate their behavior is not truly at arm's length.
Really what I think British Columbia needs, given the prevalence of this across the province, is a consistent province-wide and legally enforceable scheme to ensure that there's oversight of elected officials in terms of these codes of conduct.
So, the new provincial laws Chalk is calling for could be modeled on provinces like New Brunswick. Last summer, it put in place a provincial local governance commission. Chalk's demands come as Vancouver City Council spars over its integrity commissioner. Next month, it will decide how to review her role and whether her work should be suspended in the interim. The province says it has received Chalk's recommendation and is reviewing them, saying it's monitoring and evaluating the current responsible conduct tools with local government partners. It says further, quote, enhancements are possible. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Here we have a very cool live shot of Science World tonight. Darius will have our full forecast after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Darius Madavi joins us now with a look at our weather. Darius, today seemed like a much drier and warmer day than we've seen in past.
Yes, the clouds cleared up this morning for a beautiful blue sky day. Going to be the same story tomorrow, but a cloud in the morning, but then clearing up here in Vancouver and across the province. It's a very easy forecast because we've got lots of sunshine coming pretty much across the board. Maybe a little bit of moisture sneaking into the northwest, but you'll notice for the first time, no thunderstorms on this map from earlier today. Really no excitement at all. So a little bit of good news there. If we do take a look at our fire danger rating across the province, you'll notice that in the south, still staying very low because we still had those showers tracking across the province yesterday and into today. But in the north, already jumping back up, even on the coast where we got that deluge of rain, 50 to 100 millimeters on the north coast in Haida Gwaii. So very quick to jump back up there, sort of indicative of the drought situation. But that's the last sort of depressing news I'm going to give in this forecast because a little bit of rain tracking into the northwest again, but lots of sunshine this weekend pretty much across the board. So pretty much anybody who's hoping to get outside this weekend or go camping to celebrate the long weekend and unfortunately back to school, the end of summer, has the chance to do that without getting soaking wet like I did the other weekend. Now, in terms of the temperatures, also those are recovering over the next few days, especially in the southern interior, but here in Vancouver as well. In the north, they're staying a little bit closer to seasonal before we get into the end of the weekend or mid to end weekend. And then they start to creep up a little bit as well, but not quite as much as we're seeing in the south. Across the province over the next few days, next 24 hours, lots of sunshine, but really that's the case for the next few days as well. Don't expect to see this forecast change much over the next few days. Maybe a few more thunderstorms creep back into the southern interior at times, but generally just a lot of sunshine across the board and not much excitement at all. And here in Vancouver, Janella, it's the same story. Lots of sunshine. Again, that cloud clearing up early tomorrow morning. The humidity is back. The high temperatures inland are back, and they don't go anywhere until maybe a slight shift starting early next week.
Definitely some beautiful weather for families to get out and enjoy the last few days before back to school. I know some parents will be pretty excited about that. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Well, here in BC, we are not strangers to orcas in our waters, but not many of us have had the chance to get so up close and personal.
I think they're hunting you. Hey, you hold on to something there, Dad. They might be after you.
That's the voice of Lionel Jensen. He took this video of 4 orcas swimming in Horseshoe Bay, close enough to the docks that he could reach out and touch them.
I saw one of the staff at the marina running down the dock. I thought there might be an emergency. I was looking for smoke, and instead I saw spray up in the air and a big black fin.
We were just so lucky to be in the right place, and you know, when that big one would come by me, he would surface and take a breath, and his dorsal was right next to my face.
The father and son believe the whales were likely hunting harbor seals, which are often seen by the docks. I just want to stay on that video for a little while. It's so beautiful to see. And that is your late show for Wednesday, August 28th. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, you can always head to our website at cbc.ca/BC. We'll see you tomorrow.